Hello and welcome to everyone who is not listening right now. As I can see, I've got 0 listeners, but this is what happens when you decide to go live and only give people 5 or 4 minutes to log on and listen to you. So I figure I'll just speak out there to the void for absolutely no reason. Very sorry to all of you not listening right now that we've not done many shows this week. It's been a very difficult week, very warm, very hot, very humid. And, originating from the planet Serpo, it's actually a desert world in itself and very warm environment, which in itself doesn't bother me much, and which is why I very much like Arizona. It's a very welcoming climate for me, except when the humidity sets in. Holy shit. Holy shit, is the humidity bad. Now, granted, I'm not in San Diego. I'm not near the ocean. It's not that as bad as that on a bad day, but last couple nights been pretty miserable. Very bad sleep. Cat's been feeling it even worse than I have. Oh, hello, Eloise, you're in the room. Who else is with us tonight? Anybody? So I thought I'd follow up with another alien cast. Get people talking. I could share some fun stories. Maybe get some of you to share your stories as well, since a lot of you have said you have UFO experiences. I've got a very good one from a listener of ours that I wanted to share, but I'll wait for when more people are on air to hear it. Tell us an abduction story. Well, that's in question. Have I been abducted? Can a grave be abducted? Well, I suppose I can be abducted and forced to return home. Of course, I was banished to the Oort Belt to begin with. They don't want me home on Serpo. So, an abduction story. I'll tell you an abduction story. It was the mid-1990s. I was going to school. Yeah, all right. R.I.P. sleep. I agree with you, Eloise. It is very difficult to sleep here right now with the humidity levels as they are. I'm here alone tonight, so you guys are definitely going to have to prompt me to get stories and information going. I don't have a cat here to poke me and bring up incredibly lewd statements to make me crack up. Oh, your dad told you, okay, aged boomer. Let's put that up on the screen. Aged boomer, my dad told me stories of weird stuff he saw on radar while in the Air Force. That's very interesting. That is one of the few phenomena that does seem to have some real concrete proof behind it. Fact of the matter is, there are very, very, very few instances that have any real evidence or supporting evidence behind them. The only two that really come to mind are the Rendlesham Forest incident in the 80s in Britain, and then, of course, the Phoenix Lights here in Phoenix, Arizona. But yeah, definitely, there is some really weird stuff with radar as well. Ever since the dew line went up and SAC NORAD's been watching essentially everything. All right, we've got one from Unqualified Comics. Are we going to talk about all the aliens from Mexico? Oh, wait, the wrong ones. Well, it depends on what you mean by aliens. Yes, exactly. So you want an abduction story. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was going to school at San Francisco State in my second year. We had moved out of the dorms, and a friend of mine and I had gotten an apartment near the school. One dark night, an incredible bright light shot through my front window. I mean, it was incredible. Filled the whole house up with light. And then there was this low rumbling, and it kept getting louder and louder. And you could hear this hum, and it was weird. I couldn't quite make it out exactly, this weird humming noise. And as it kept going, the windows started to rattle and shake, and some of the stuff like cups on tables started to kind of rattle with it. And I didn't know what the hell it was. And I started, this was the heyday of the X-Files and alien paranoia. So, I got a very large blunt object. Then I went over and I got my portable camera, which was loaded and ready to go. And I slipped over to the window and looked out. And into that blinding light I stared. And it was a very large diesel truck with its floodlights pointed right into the front window. Not very impressive, I know. Am I gray or green? I am, in fact, gray through and through. Hello, WolfoMedia. As I've said, I told this on the last Alien show. I've only actually had one legit sighting. It was a daylight sighting, as I'd mentioned. I believe I was 13 years old and coming back from Boy Scout camp at the time. And we were all on a bus, and we were coming down the switchbacks, and we were looking out over what is called Lake Paris, Lake Paris in Southern California. And it's a very screwed up, polluted lake that you don't want to go to, but it has a lot of trailers around it. Now, it is not too far away from March Air Force Base. And as we were coming down the switchbacks, I look out the window, and the kid next to me in the bus saw it as well. We're in the bus coming back from summer camp, and there it is. This big silver disc is just kind of buzzing the lake. And we were looking down on it, and the light was just gleaming off it. It was so bright, and it was chrome to the point that the light coming off it reflected from the sun kind of hurt my eyes. And we watched it buzz the lake and just keep on going. And some people saw it in the bus. Other people, I guess, were off doing their own thing. It was a bunch of teenage boys, so it wasn't very... let's just say lots of things were being thrown. People were shouting. We were all glad to be going home. But for myself, it was a thoroughly eerie experience. At that age, life was very unstable, and the last thing I needed was an extra slice of reality that didn't make any sense enter into a world that I wanted to hold on to. I wanted to make sure everything was in its place and have some sort of semblance of order of what was real and not in my world, and that didn't fit. So it was kind of like reality imploding when I saw it. To this day, I don't know what I saw. Like I said, we were close to an Air Force base, but the thing that stuck with me is it was moving very slowly, and it looked like your archetypical standard silver disc with a small little dome up top, and that was it, your classic flying saucer. Now, I know that there are military experiments that have been tried with saucer-shaped designs. I know that the Avro car never went anywhere. An interesting thing about the Avro car that was designed by Avro as a jet-powered saucer vehicle, which supposedly didn't work very well, is that after the project was canceled, everything was purchased by the CIA, and that was the last anyone heard of it. There was another one called the Silver Bug, and again, that was one of those things that just accidentally got declassified one day, and it was specs for supposedly a oval-shaped saucer craft that had kind of the classic saucer look to it. Was it ever built? Good question, but strangely enough, it was not for the Air Force. It was for intelligence agencies. So make of that what you will. All right, so what do we got here? Elias Claude. I had a UFO abduction. My first was I was beamed up inside a ship. Then 5 minutes later, they spit me back out. Why? Because I said the N-word to them and fucked around with their stuff. They never came back. Did you ever see that episode or that? No, this shows my age. The TV show Soap, which was a parody of soap operas. Did you see the whole story arc where one of the characters got abducted by gray aliens and was replaced by an android? Or was it? No, it was an alien in a human suit had replaced him and was sleeping with his wife. Okay, let's see. Aged Boomer. I was watching Unsolved Mysteries the other day. It featured interviews with the Belgian Air Force. That is an interesting case. That is another one. I'm glad you brought that up. The Belgian Air Force, that case is absolutely legit. The radar data is very bizarre, multiple corroborating stories of that data. And the eeriest part was the number of photographs, while they're not very good, are exactly what people said they saw, which was a triangular shaped craft that had lights on each tip and was moving incredibly quickly. Actually, I may have a decent photo of that if you give me a minute. I used to have one. So let's see if I can dig that up. But yeah, that's been another case that I kind of wish there was more information on, because for the period that uh, um, the Belgian Air Force was watching that, and then there were some other European countries that reported similar incidents of this. Yeah, that was curious. Was that our Air Force? Was it something that we were testing? I know that we used to buzz our own allies plenty with the SR-71, or was that something else? I do find it interesting that ever since Trump became president, we've been far more open with this stuff. In fact, it's interesting that the moment Trump became president, a lot of stuff suddenly became far more transparent, and not much has ever been said of it, which is okay. This is not very impressive from a user perspective, but hold on. Let me pop this up for you. This is what Age Boomer's talking about. And no, this isn't porn. And there it is. Now, people reported seeing more of a triangular shaped craft, but if you see this thing, look at it. It does have flat edges on the corners. And this is one, there were quite a few photos of this thing, and they all look like this. This conceivably could be a drone or a space or a aircraft of some sort that's working on principles we don't understand. What's also telling is we see the glowing orbs, which seem to be some sort of propulsion system. What's curious about that is there were people who knew nothing of this case who reported similar propulsion devices on the Phoenix Lights when they were buzzing the houses here, which is curious, right? Let's see. If I can pop up one more. Now, there is a theory to that. Come on. Now, I remember years and years ago, in the 80s, my dad used to watch or listen to a morning show in Los Angeles called Mark and Brian. And they were kind of the cool morning DJs at the time on KLOS, which was the classic rock station. And I remember once they had a guy on air who used to go out and hit these test sites where supposedly UFOs were being tested. And one story he told was that he would see this craft that was kind of triangular shaped, and that it would buzz low to the ground, right, almost treetop level sometimes, and that underneath it there were like stars, so that the stars would kind of move along the bottom so that it mimicked what was above, kind of like the Predator, except it was a screen and it was just mimicking the star pattern above it. And he swore this was an alien craft. As a kid, I didn't really pay much mind, crazy guy talking about UFOs. Now, what was interesting about that was then in the early 2000s, there was a lot of talk that our Air Force had developed a high-speed stealth blimp that was triangular shaped, could move at high speeds or at low speeds, hover silently at treetop level, and that the bottom was covered with a sort of film or screen that could mimic the stars above what it was. Now, is that what they saw in is this what the Belgian Air Force saw? Probably not, because the thing the Belgian Air Force saw was apparently moving at hypersonic speeds. I really severely doubt a prop-powered blimp could do that. But it is interesting how many of these stories that I had heard about from UFO types in the 80s then were verified so many years later. So let's see what you guys have to say about that. And again, I am stunned you guys want to hear me talk about this. All right. You can see me, my lovely face there. All right. DandySpike says, I always wondered where the flying saucers, the look of the flying saucer came from. That's interesting because you can go back to pulp magazines back as far back as I believe the 20s, where there were saucer-shaped crafts being portrayed, including aliens and saucer-shaped crafts. So maybe that was just something that was kind of hardwired into our cultural consciousness from day one, that might be a shape of a spacecraft. Although the modern idea of the spacecraft happened in 1949, I believe. Let me get those. Kenneth Arnold. I want to get this correct. Okay, Kenneth Arnold. And he was a pilot. And okay, let's see. Oh, no, sorry about that. That it was June 1947, and he saw a very interesting squadron of bizarre crafts flying above Mount Rainier. And what he described were boomerang shaped, interestingly enough. And let's see if I can get an image, artist rendition of that. And what he had said to the press when he'd seen them was that they looked like saucers skipping along the ocean, or skipping across a lake. If you were to toss a saucer over a lake or toss a round rock over a lake, that he said they moved like that, like they were skipping stones. And the newspapers at the time ran the story of it as flying saucers spotted. Okay, actually, here, let me pull some of these up. I've got the images now. Let's hopefully this is showing what I want you to see. But so we can see here, this is what over here on the right is what he saw, or at least what he saw from an extreme distance. So who knows what it really looked like, but to his eye, that is what he saw. And there was a whole squadron of them. Now, what is interesting about that design is, at the time, we were testing our own version. Well, it's rumored. Oh, great, never mind. It won't pop up. We were testing this flying wing design, supposedly, that the Nazis had been trying to get to work. Could it be that he saw this craft, or at least our version of that craft, with just with aluminum skin, no paint on it, and it was kind of bouncing up the atmosphere, which is entirely possible, or hitting turbulence? Good question, but the fact of the matter is that's where the concept of alien ships being saucers first kind of entered the cultural zeitgeist, as it were. And what's interesting is you see 1947, and there was a whole string of them after that that happened in rapid succession, including the Roswell incident, mid-1947. So keep in mind, this was right after Kenneth Arnold's sighting, and there were sightings going on all over the place. And it was interesting that later there was a real concerted effort to downplay it or eventually portray these people as kooks. And it was interesting how the culture itself just kind of accepted, okay, it was fake. And after a while, no one really thought much about it anymore until much, much later when it all came back up. And there's various ways that it came back up. But yeah, the thing I would stress is in the late 40s and early 50s, UFOs were not some kook territory. They were very, very serious. All right. Well, looks like you're not seeing it at all. Great. Let's see if I can try this again. Great. You didn't see any of it. Kenneth, I wish Kat was here to fill the dead air for me. Let's try again. Okay, come on. Why is it not showing? Is it showing now? No, it isn't. You know what? Fuck it. I tried. I definitely tried. I don't know. I don't know why it's not working. Let's give it one more try. There we go. You should probably see it now. See the boomerang-shaped craft here on the right? That's what Kenneth Arnold saw, or at least that was his portrayal of what he saw. And what I was mentioning was we had obtained the plans to this plane up here, which was a flying wing from the Nazis. And it's incredibly possible that we were trying to get that wing to work. Maybe Northrop was testing it, because they later did develop the flying wing. And it's not a huge leap to see this batwing design here be interpreted as what Kenneth Arnold saw, especially if there was no paint on it, it was just an aluminum shell. All right. Yeah, okay, now you got to see it. Stop sharing. All right. And I'm back. There's my face again. Okay, let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, the Belgian one is legit. All right. Fiona Wolf, I am of the belief that the universe is too vast for us to be the only ones out here. Kind of like the line in Contact. It would kind of be a waste of space if it were just us. Legitimately, I thoroughly agree. The idea that we're the only life out here is incredibly improbable. There's been a number of very good arguments that the universe has just entered a phase where life is abundant and we may be among the first. That is a plausible theory. Another one that I like to think of, though, is how would we know alien life if we saw it, honestly? I mean, we keep thinking so often when you hear about alien life, it's done in the parameters akin to us as biological life forms. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, or something to thereabout. Even our conception of aliens often in films are still, there's some sort of point of reference back to Earth. Now, maybe there is a process. Maybe there are certain constraints that life has to occur under. Or maybe there are forms of life that just wouldn't appear to be alive to us, or exist in such a different way that we wouldn't even recognize it as life. I mean, just to get ludicrous, okay, suppose there was a giant slime mold that covered the surface of a planet and its cells replicated the functioning of neurons, so it was a big brain and was actually self-aware. Would we even recognize that as being alive? The most difficult part when thinking in these terms is reference points. And what I mean by reference points is that we all are able to communicate and interact and comprehend each other because we all have shared reference points. Like I said, we have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. And by virtue of that, we interact with the world around us in a way that we all can say, well, you know how you do that? Yeah, I do that too. And even most animals on this planet, we have at least some sort of similar reference point. And if you look at something that's very, very foreign to us, very alien, octopi, right? We would still have more in common with an octopus than an alien. And think about that. And for the longest time, we did not realize that octopus were incredibly intelligent, that they were self-aware, that they had families, that they built neighborhoods, that they clearly had some sort of rudimentary language and a means of communication we don't understand. The fact that each tendril or tentacle seems to have neurons in it and is self-aware to some degree. This is really interesting. So we haven't even managed to communicate with octopus, which may be one of the most intelligent life forms on the planet aside from us. And we can't even talk to that because we have no reference point for the most part. How do we even begin to talk to it? How do we, our eyes don't communicate the same things. So we don't have, there's no facial reference to know just basic, well, again, we communicate heavily through facial expressions alone. There's nothing to go off of there. Hand movements, nothing to go off there. So yeah, it's entirely likely that there's life all over the place, and we just don't even recognize it. Okay, let's see. So ETs decide to reveal themselves as to humans. What do you think would be the way to ensure as little panic or chaos as possible? That's a very good question. I don't know. It's a kind of a strange question because the concept of aliens now isn't as horrifying to us or even foreign to us as it was, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. The idea of men from outer space was fantasy or so wild. Now, we're used to the idea of not being alone in the universe. We're used to various mythologies, modern mythologies, portraying, well, what if aliens show up? What would interacting with aliens be? That I don't think would be quite the shock that it would have been with, say, our parents' generation or definitely our grandparents. All this information about unidentified objects now being finally released. And again, I find it interesting that the moment we get someone like Trump in office, suddenly all this info is coming out. Why? Stuff that they claim they would never, ever acknowledge, even if it were true, and here they're doing it. The interesting reaction has been more and more of this stuff comes out, and the general consensus among young people are like, and? Okay. And? Now show me something impressive. So I don't know what the panic would be. I mean, maybe more insular cultures would react more extreme. I mean, often the concern had been, well, what would this mean for the religious? We'd have this horrible, horrible reaction from the religious. I'll just flat out be completely politically incorrect. I think Islam might ship bricks. But I've talked to plenty of scientists and sci-fi writers who are, Catholic, Mormon, Lutheran, and the concept that somehow that's going to make their theology, their worldview crumble is kind of silly. I mean, it's very clear that the faith is stronger than that or has worked that into the universe, so it's not really an issue. How will people react? I have no idea. I think the bigger question is, what would the alien life be like, is the big question. I mean, does it come down here and it was a little gray man that we can look in the face and talk to, or is it some weird, gigantic, sentient cloud? All right. Triangle's the shape of the gods. All right. Let's see. Caesar, or cesariojpn, I don't know. During middle school, I was interested in mystery phantom airships, a phenomenon in the late 1800s, of fanciful airships that were reported all over the U.S. One was nicknamed the Flying Cigar. Yeah, that's an interesting one, because that is a very, very early case of UFO hysteria happening. Were there flying cigar airships? Yes. Yeah, that's not actually in question. It's believed that probably, back in those days, there were a lot of, tinkers in their barns making things. And it's the odds that somebody was trying to add a propeller to a balloon or start flying to make airships is not a long shot. And I believe there has been plenty of corroborating evidence. But what's interesting about the airship mystery, and I think you probably know this, is once a few of them were seen, suddenly they were being seen all over the place. And the stories were getting more and more outlandish. And they were landing and they were doing weird things and stealing people and leaving gifts and weird messages. So very similar to UFO phenomena today, where something legit will happen and then the public runs amok with it, and hysteria takes over, and lots of people who want to feel important or feel part of the adventure of it all start making up their own bullshit. And some people are so crazy they believe their own bullshit. Kronk, the Catholic Church already accepts that extraterrestrials exist. I believe Mormons do too, actually. I think Islam has said they're demons. But yeah, I really don't see that as being too conflicting. Bisco, extraterrestrials can easily incorporate into a being, can be easily incorporated into a religion, especially if aliens also have some form of religion. We'll just say that it's the same entity that created all of it. And again, that'll be an interesting thing if that day ever comes. Will they have a theology of their own? Will their minds work that way? It will be a test case in that way, is that we'll finally have a control group or an outside comparison. I mean, everything on Earth has the reference point of being an Earth culture or even just an Earth life form. What happens when you develop life outside of that petri dish? What things do we share? What things are inevitably going to form in any environment, in any culture, in any complex intelligence structure, and which won't? The one that fascinates me is the concept of morals. I mean, we, after millions and millions and millions of years of social evolution, have come to the point we're at now. And I can be a Western chauvinist all I want and say that I think Western culture is the best, that we have reached a social moral apex that is at risk due to moral relativists wanting to tear it down, and that really our code of laws, our constitution, our concept of live and let live, and so on, is probably the greatest innovation of all time, and that it should be something to be very proud of and to share with other cultures, not shoved to the side as academics want to do. The interesting thing is, though, is an alien culture going to develop that same code of ethics and morals? Will the idea of live and let live and the sanctity of the individual and life win out? Or will they have more of a hive mentality? Will it be something like China where, oh, don't worry about killing people, we'll make more? What would be the outcome? What would be the dominant social structure that would take over? Frighteningly, that could open the door to horrible, horrible conflict. Although I would have to believe that any life that got here would have to have gotten their shit together well enough to not be killing each other. All right. DandySpike, personally, if there was an alien discovery, it would be some sort of bacteria or something close to it. Yeah, I think we're talking about intelligent life, though, although it would be interesting if we did find some sort of bacterial life form that was a colony life that, by virtue of being a colony, it had intelligence. I don't believe bacteria can ever develop on its own to be intelligent. But if you had enough of them working in concert, yeah, they could form neurons. Operation High Jump. Oh, you're talking about the balloon test that they claim is what Roswell was. The thing about Roswell is something happened, the dates are screwed up. And there were ones where Operation High Jump did overlap with some of the dates claimed, and others they didn't. That story itself is so mixed up, and there are so many things that are obscured by time that we don't even know. It's really hard to say at this point. Was there an Operation High Jump? Absolutely. But I don't believe the actual dates quite overlap correctly. But I think it's lost to time or paperwork or intelligence reports that will never be released. Do I think a saucer landed there? No, I don't. What do you mean? Wait, I'm lying. I'm sorry. I'm a gray. Of course it was a saucer. I want EBE1 and EBE2 released from Wright-Patterson immediately. They're being held there against their will. They're still free citizens, damn it. Okay. DandySpike, imagine living in a society where someone could say, you and you orth morals, and it could actually mean it. Or, well, let's say, for instance, they turn out to be evil bastards. How many fucking SJWs would side with them? Yes, we do. We deserve to be enslaved. Owen. Oh, great. Here we go. Of course, it had to come back to Guyver, didn't it, Owen? Here's a concept for you. In Guyver's story, the creators who made the unit came from Earth and created the human race as a bioweapon of war. That's a cool idea. I like that quite a bit. Again, don't mean to blaspheme. I have absolute respect for the faithful out there, but I'll be upfront. We had that weird leap forward as a species, I believe, 75,000 years ago. The human race came about anywhere between 500,000 to 1 million years ago, when we stayed that way for quite a long time. And then something happened where we went from being Homo sapien to Homo sapien sapien. Now, a lot of global things happened that might have kicked it off, but it is incredibly bizarre that out of nowhere, it seemed like some sort of trigger was flipped, and we exponentially got more intelligent and more evolved as a species. I mean, socially, not physically. But our social evolution just expanded and took off like crazy. Why is that? If somebody said no, that was outside influence from an alien race, and came out with concrete proof, I'd believe it. It's probable. Did I ever watch Earth, the Final Conflict series? Not enough of it. I thought that was a great idea. The first season, at least, I didn't get to see enough of it. Kat watched the whole thing. She is obsessed with it. It's a real shame she's not on. She could probably talk your ear off about it. I liked the idea of the synod, though. If the space Chinese come, we're done. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Space hyenas come down, and they will have a possibly tough time, and we will have I don't know. Hyenas are pretty vicious. Wait, aren't they a matriarchy? And like the head matriarch grows a dick or something like that? I think that's a hyena. Yeah, they're vicious, apparently. What if instead of coming from the sky, they came from the bottom of the ocean? Well, there was actually some sort of a dimensional rift at the bottom of the ocean, so it wasn't really the ocean per se. Wolf, have you heard of Hero Tekaman Blade? No, I have not. I am very sorry. Okay. They made kaiju as well. Okay, let's see what we got here. I would love for someone to create a story where all the deities and creatures really did turn out to be aliens. Jesus and Buddha went back to their home planet. Well, that's actually been done a few times. Zachariah Sitchin did his Chariot of the Gods, although as much acclaim as that book and his research got, it was incredibly bad science, ridiculously bad. A lot of it, all you had to do was go to the locations he was claiming, measure a few items or look at a few things, and realize he was just making it up. And I believe that that weird guy on the History Channel, well, I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. From what I understand, that's his protege. So if that's any hint, what he was, they were both con artists. But it made him a lot of money, and it encouraged a few good pieces of media. Specifically, Battlestar Galactica came directly out of that. I believe there's been some anime that's done that. Quite a few sci-fi novels have handled that really well. The really interesting thing is if you look at Gnosticism, the idea of alien life being our gods, you can take the Gnostic beliefs and just twist them ever so slightly, and you've got your narrative right there. It's all laid out, which is quite fascinating. I actually find Gnosticism really interesting. Do I believe it? No. But as a metaphor, I find it fascinating and very interesting, and if not, somewhat relatable. I'm trying to think. There were a few others. Well, again, I said Battlestar Galactica definitely played up that aspect. Did you ever see the one where the devil was an alien as well? And it was Lord Iblis, and he came aboard the Galactica? Again, showing my age. Maybe she can talk next episode on the big alien show. Do you like that title? I was kind of sarcasm. We were trying to think of something clever like Gray Matters or something like that. But I don't know. Ishi's big alien show. I like that. Occam's razor. Life spontaneously occurred on Earth versus life spontaneously started on another planet and got brought to Earth by an advanced alien civilization. Well, I didn't say that it didn't spontaneously occurred on Earth. I'm saying, what if that bizarre leap forward? And I'm not saying it did. I'm just saying if somebody said our bizarre leap forward in 75,000 years ago, if that weird advancement that just set off this exponential growth in our advancement, if that really did turn out to be some sort of outside influence from an alien species, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just saying it wouldn't shock me. But, the theory of panspermia pretty much says that it's entirely possible that the life on this planet began with stuff falling out of the sky. So, I mean, it depends on what you want to take from that. All right. Hey, cat! I'm hoping I can get her in here. I need to get some water or something. My voice is going dry. Caesar, wasn't there 2 series, one dark and one more lighthearted? You mean Battlestar Galactica? Yeah. The one in the 70s was a lot of fun. Definitely inspired by Star Wars, had incredible effects for its time. It started off really strong, and then it started falling back on very by-the-number scripts. A lot of the scripts were blatant ripoffs of popular movies and plots, to the point where you outright knew what they were ripping off. Like, at the time, there was a very, very popular film called The Towering Inferno, which was about a fire in a skyscraper. So they just repeated the exact same plot on the Galactica. They did a ripoff of the Magnificent Seven, except it was on some fantasy where it was like D&D. They did an Old West one where a Cylon had crashed there and become the evil town sheriff, and I think Starbuck had to have a high noon with him in the middle of town. And that got kind of dull after a while and kind of cheesy. But the basic mythology behind it, there was so much to work with that I think the remake could have really borrowed from. The other funny thing is that Battlestar Galactica was largely a retelling of the Mormon story in space, which was kind of, well, Glenn Larson was a Mormon, so I thought that was kind of funny. And then a lot of, I don't know enough about Mormonism to say, but apparently often they would talk about the book of the great universe, or the great universe says, or the great creator says, and they would quote the Book of Mormon from time to time on the show, which is kind of funny. Okay, but the second show by Ron Moore, which was on Sci-Fi, I thought that first miniseries, and then the first season and a half of that show was some of the best television ever made. And then, as the Bush administration came into power, Ron Moore and his happy band of SJWs lost their nerve. Originally, it was about the terror of realizing we were up against Al Qaeda and an enemy that we couldn't reason with and that we didn't understand. And that's what the Cylons had represented. But in time, they just couldn't stick with it. They lost their nerve, and inevitably they took the turn that every SJW postmodern leftist does, and it was, oh, it's all our fault, we deserved it. And it became so contrived because of it, and I just couldn't watch the show. It just became shit. The Cylons were no longer scary. Another thing that I couldn't buy, and I think this is very reflective of Hollywood and leftists in general, was that the Galactica was the last bastion of humanity. We barely had enough to carry the species on, but yet they were still allowing abortions. Okay, seriously? Seriously. No, I'm sorry, you lose that right when the entire species is at risk. Another one that got me was that when the human race is whittled down to about 50,000 people and every life counts, we've seen time and time again, humanity suddenly will drop all differences and go after that enemy with a vengeance. We have seen that we will unite and we will slay that enemy with every ounce of anger and fight we've got in us. Even if it means we all die, we'll go out fighting. And clearly, the Hollywood types and the leftists that were writing Galactica for the Sci-Fi Channel could not see that. They could not fathom that. They couldn't imagine humans having that level of sacrifice or concern for their fellow man or dedication to a higher cause. As always, like most Hollywood types, they cared about money, their own pleasure, and selfishness. And so that's how they portrayed the humans in the show. You never saw them ever really unite against an enemy that wanted them all dead. And say what you want about Reagan, but if we had an outside enemy, we would unite in a heartbeat. Well, okay, maybe Muslims wouldn't, but most of humanity would pretty much unite in a heartbeat and go after that alien threat, even if it meant all of us dying in battle. I mean, it's just how we are wired. We are not wired to go down easy. I mean, we've never done anything easy. You look at human history, the people who want the easy way out die pretty fucking quick, and the people that last are the ones who will not go out the easy way. So I'd really like to see some sort of sci-fi show, re-embrace that honesty about the human race, that honesty about the people who are willing to serve and put their lives on the line. And of course, the people in Hollywood aren't going to be able to grasp that level of dedication to a higher cause or for someone else's well-being or for the species in general or the civilization in general. I mean, look at the morals of Hollywood. They are morally bankrupt. They're full of shit, and yet they presume to preach to the rest of us constantly as if they know what they're talking about. It's a culture of what? Liars, con artists, pedophiles, rapists, and yet they're dictating to us what right and wrong is and what's moral and what we should do. Yes, I really, really hate the culture of Hollywood. All right, well, that was a soapbox, wasn't it? Quite fun. Kat, oh, good, I got you in here. Hey, talk to them about something. I need to get some liquid.
Okay.
Make shit up.
When you come back, can you bring my chair?
Sure.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I just heard Ishi regaling you with tales of brimstone and woe, apparently. Oh, thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, I was taking a break from my long day at work, working on my latest art project. Actually, 2 art projects. One I'm hoping I just finished. So let's see what we have here in the chat. How is everybody this evening? I hope you're doing great. Me, I'm still a little dingy from my long day. But hey, that's what makes for good entertainment, right? When I'm not entirely on, but I'm kind of punchy. Yeah, we like that. Tends to lead to me ranting. So let's see here. Hi, Wolf. How you doing? Hey, Owen. Hi, Elias. Hello, everybody in the chat. Hope everybody's doing great this evening. So, what exactly sparked Ishi's rant about Hollywood? Or maybe I should wait till he gets in here to ask that. Hey, Eloise. Mark, quick, someone throw a bad comic in front of Kat. Oh, my God. Oh, we're already getting in on that, huh? God, do they make comic books anymore?
It's going to be like, when our grandparents would come in. Oh, they still make them comic books? Wow, I used to love these. It's going to be us one day. We're going to come into a room. And, holy shit, there's still comic books?
And do they still suck as much as they do in my day?
Oh, I remember in my day, kids, comics sucked ass.
Yeah.
They were good for a while, and then your mom happened.
No, it's bad when I'm feeling myself getting nostalgic for milk and cheese.
Okay, let's see. So I've primarily been talking about aliens.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Although I heard you talking about Hollywood.
Well, somebody asked if there were he said wasn't there two Battlestar Galacticas, and I was explaining the differences.
Oh, between the two TV shows,
and that why the original what was fun about it and how it actually had a neat basis, but it fell apart because of bad writing, and that the second one, that the miniseries and the first season and a half were some of the best sci-fi television ever done. But as Bush came into office, the lefties and Hollywood assholes that were running, Ron Moore running the new Galactica, did what they always did, and eventually the Cylons turned out to be the victims, and humanity was at fault, and we deserved it. Same old thing. And I was saying that clearly they could never picture humanity uniting or people dying for something more important.
Well, also, for as much as I wish that they would be consistent on whether or not there are absolutes, because they swear, oh, there's no moral absolutes, unless they call you a Nazi.
Oh, yeah.
So, when you have a villain, you can't change things up.
Have you ever noticed in Hollywood there's only one moral absolute ever allowed?
And that is they get to do and fuck whoever they want?
No, that's not a moral. Nazis are bad.
And a Nazi is whatever they say a Nazi is.
Yeah, a Nazi is bad. That is universally the only thing that is ever absolutely bad.
Well, I would like to point out,
even rapists apparently are okay. Look at Joe Biden.
As far as storytelling goes, let me take a step back. I am not opposed to having a villain be humanized, or to where you get that villain's point of view. However, either A, the villain should continue to be a villain. You just they're just an actual well-rounded character, like, say, Scorpius from Farscape. Or B, you use the enemy of my enemy is my friend principle, and you introduce an even worse villain to where people have to work together. And even if they work together, they shouldn't necessarily be friends. Like in Macross.
Yeah. Well, that Macross did such a good job of portraying the difficulty of integrating a new culture after a war, and the best and worst aspects of it. So let's see, what else do we got here?
Wolf 10 says the real hedonists live in Hollywood, yet they act like they're the arbiters of judge and preach to us.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
Indeed.
You know, there's a lot of rumors going around right now that the only reason that cunt who's going to ruin Star Wars even more, the one who's going to be doing the New Republic films or the Old Republic films or whatever, the only reason that she's getting to do that, and the reason they haven't given her the boot yet, and apparently there's real evidence behind this, is that she was Harvey Weinstein's number 2 person. She was there for all of it, and apparently she probably has dirt on Bob Iger and Eisner, and that is why they can't get rid of her. Think about that. And yet she packages herself as a feminist.
Well, so she's being honest.
You know, actually, yeah, that's been my experience with feminists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rapists are okay as long as it's our rapist.
Well, look at Marion Zimmer Bradley.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Caesar says that he reposted this query. What would be worse, humanoid-looking militaristic aliens in Earth invasion mode, or mass monster alien berserker types invading Earth, a la Bugs and Starship Troopers?
That's kind of an interesting one, because...
Do you speak from experience?
You know, I've really got to decide whether I'm going to stick to the alien persona or just...
You have the avatar. When you have
bugs.
an alien, you're an
Fuck
alien.
bugs. Bugs are awful. I hate bugs.
So that scene where it's saying, "Are you doing your part?" and it's showing the mom
Oh,
cheering
I'm all
on the
for
kids,
that. Yeah,
stomping
step on
the
those
kids.
damn, especially if they look like roaches. Fuck roaches.
Oh, fuck the roaches.
There's an alien species of roaches. Let's say they're peaceful. No, we're killing them. We're wiping them out.
You know, I know that there is a service out there where you can get edible bugs, and it's both a novelty and it's a survival food, and I'm actually 100% for it. But one of the ones that you can get are these water bugs that look exactly like cockroaches, and it's like, fuck that, I think I might starve. Either that or you'd have to blindfold me, or I can grind it up into rice, because no, I'm not eating it while looking at it.
Look, Bill Gates can go eat the fucking bugs first, okay? Him first. I don't see him eating bugs. So, no, actually, from a writer's perspective, I'll give you the answer. It depends on what you're going for. The thing about Starship Troopers was that, in the novel at least, they were symbolizing communism, Marxism, the communist mindset, and Chinese communalism. And the idea was, he saw what was going on in China, that the individuals were disposable, that individuals didn't matter. And that Heinlein saw how, Chinese would be worked to death. They would be used as machines. They would be used as cannon fodder, with the full knowledge that they were just going to have millions or hundreds of thousands of them die. And he found that appalling. And he knew that communism encouraged it as well. And so the bugs were kind of a combination of that Chinese mindset and Marxism. And that's what they symbolized. And the thing was, he made the bugs look inhuman. And it's easy to fight and kill an inhuman enemy. Nobody has any problem shooting a bug, especially one that wants to kill you.
And there is something very primal in our brains that says that is the enemy when we look at insects.
On the other hand, it's very difficult to feel a visceral emotional hatred for a thing. Okay, you dislike or are repelled by, you find them, you have a revulsion to roaches, but you don't have an emotional attachment to really wanting to torture that fucker.
Unlike spiders.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, people have set their houses on fire trying to kill a single spider.
But with a humanoid one that we can look at, and a humanoid alien with a face and a mouth, or traits that we can recognize in ourselves, we can viscerally hate that on a way that we can never with a bug or fish creature or something.
So is this like where you get the Oh, it's not the uncanny valley, but it's basically that line between when it becomes human enough that we see it as.
Did anyone feel
humanoid.
bad when the blob got frozen or set on fire?
No.
Exactly.
Or well, what about the Thing? I know nobody feels for the Thing, but it definitely had traits.
It was, but they instantly stopped looking human the moment you found it.
True. More you felt bad for the creatures that it had killed
Right.
or absorbed.
Where, for instance, wasn't there a Jurassic Park film where one of the dinos gets killed? Where they show it getting killed?
What one that they well, that they liked? Or
No, just in general. I'm trying to remember that there have been films where, you know, the wild animal trying to kill the person, the audience will still feel bad for it when it gets shot or killed, or you see what I mean?
I see what
because
you mean.
it's got a face and it can show pain and
I see what you mean. To be honest, after the Lost World, I dropped out of but they did feel bad for the baby T-Rex.
Yeah, exactly. See?
You know, the baby T-Rex that's leg got hurt. Endless Nocturne. The power to determine what words mean is the power to rule over others. Believing you can redefine any word to fit your needs makes SJWs insanely totalitarian.
SJWs, nobody believed us when we kept saying these people are extremely dangerous. Yes, they look laughable now. They are extremely dangerous. And I'm just glad they're not gun owners.
Yeah.
And even if they did own guns, we've seen how well they handle them. That is one thing I've noticed about left-wing terrorism is they can't shoot for shit.
No,
all these attempts, they have missed so many targets where, you know, there should have been a massacre. It's like, well, you know, they unloaded the clip and hit one person in a crowded room. I'm not kidding. There's been so many incidents like that. Or, well, it would have been dangerous if you'd hit the target. I had forgot to cock the gun, so.
They forgot to cock the gun. Like, hey, you know the safety's on, right?
Okay, is there any other you see interesting?
All
right.
Well, Owen says that they're not making, that they're making villains too sympathetic.
I actually think there's a reason they do that, in Hollywood at least, and you deal with these people, you listen to what they think, you watch how they behave. I think they relate to the villains. Mm-hmm. Seriously. I mean, this is an entire culture in Hollywood based on trying to rip everyone off, steal everything you can, screw every person you can, and you're not happy in any deal unless the other guy feels like they've been ripped off. That they're constantly trying to burn other people down, sabotage, use underhanded tactics, lie, cheat. Of course they relate to the villain. They're the villains. You know, Darth Vader has more honor than these fucks.
Unless it's a white male.
You nailed it. Yeah, people felt bad for the prawns.
Did I miss that?
District 9.
Oh, yes. Thank you. District 9.
All right.
God, it's been a while since I've seen that film. God, that film's interesting because of how many people like miss the fact that the one alien and his son totally ditch everybody else and go home with no sign of coming back.
Smell you later, fuckers. We're out of here. Woo!
It's like, wait a minute. He's not going back to get help. He's just going home. He's saying, fuck y'all. Endless Nocturne. Worst possible type of alien is the Omnionist kind. Better dead than red. Resistance isn't futile, you filthy commies.
Damn straight.
You know, with this conversation, I don't know if... Do you know which was written first, Starship Troopers or Ender's Game?
Oh, shit. I can't believe you're asking that. Yes. Starship Troopers by a long shot.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know.
It was the 50s.
I don't know. No, I'm serious. I didn't know. Okay, because I always
Look.
thought that they were.
Look, just because I've been alive a lot longer than you, since the 20s.
Shit.
Now, I've changed bodies a few times.
Look, I'm sorry. Okay, I legitimately didn't know. Okay, so anyway, but I did read them back to back, and I thought that they were interesting companion pieces, especially because as you said, the bugs in Starship Troopers were representing communism, and they kind of were too in Ender's Game. So it's interesting the take on the two of like, oh, one's sympathetic, one is like, no, fuck them. And the whole, honestly, I hated the end of Ender's Game where all of a sudden he feels bad for the bugs. It's like, why? They were going to wipe us out. It's like, well, they didn't understand. They were still going to wipe us out. It doesn't matter that it's a misunderstanding. They were going to kill us. And I seriously doubt the Bug Queen would have taken the time like you're doing, because you're fucking human, to realize that it's a misunderstanding. She would have just wiped us out and went, oh, well, too bad, so sad.
One of the things in Starship Troopers that Heinlein was very much trying to impress upon young readers was that the communal, non-individualist mindset, that ideology, is one that needs the entire world to be that way to maintain itself, or it will fall, which has been proven true.
Yeah.
That if there's an alternative, it's going to fail. And that, so therefore, it has to wipe out any culture, any civilization that where the individual and individual rights are sacred. And it was basically telling the youth of the 60s and the early 50s or late 50s was, look, you can't live side by side with commies. They may claim to be nice, but their very ideology won't let you exist. Look what happened when they got in power. They were nice till they
got up there.
Yeah, once they could step on people, look at them now.
Yeah, you have people being arrested and fined for being the only person in 10 miles on a beach.
Yeah. Getting taken to the ground for wearing a stormtrooper costume, walking alone to your fucking job.
Poor girl. God, that's criminal. Okay. God, I hope she gets a good lawyer.
And you notice in all these states and cities where they're having the most intense and most restrictive lockdowns, the rules don't apply to the leaders because some are more equal than others.
Exactly. Right. Aged Boomer, I think the most insidious aliens I've seen in a movie are the ones from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
I know it's a sin, but I haven't seen that film yet.
There's three of them.
I know all about it, but I also have my rule of if something's a classic, I really should watch it before I really weigh in, and I haven't done that yet.
There have been 3, and they're all good.
Okay, that's impressive.
There's been 3 versions of it, and they're all good.
That's insanely impressive. I mean, usually when you get remakes, the John Carpenter remake or retelling is a rarity where it's just as good, if not better. Same with like The Fly. The fact that there's 3 and they're all good.
And the original, the hero is Kevin McCarthy, who was the villain in UHF.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
I love him. He's awesome. Real quick.
But yeah, even the one that was made in, I think, the early 90s, late 80s with Jennifer Tilly's sister, even that one was very good. I mean, maybe not the classic of the others, but very good.
Oh, wow.
I really enjoyed it. Heinlein did his own version of the Body Snatchers.
Did he?
Yeah, but you know how he outed the commies?
Well, that's the one where it's okay, everyone, get naked.
Yeah.
Anybody who's not turned on is an imposter.
You know, I've got to be honest. I kind of wonder if that was a swipe at his fellow sci-fi writers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anybody in particular?
Well, okay, look. He was one of the founders of the SFWA, the Science Fiction Writers Association. And a lot of the big names and the big movers and shakers in there were all hard lefties. And what's interesting is, I'll piece it all together for you in a minute here, and you'll suddenly see where I'm going. It was the Puppet Masters, which was essentially the Body Snatchers. The aliens show up and they start taking people over. And eventually they figure out that the way that you out the alien is they lose all desire for the opposite sex. They lose any passion or the capability of feeling the bonding with another human, specifically of the opposite sex.
They can't get Twitter pated or a boner.
Right. And at the end, they out who the aliens are by making everyone get naked. And if you don't react or respond as a human would, you're one of the aliens. Now, I think he was definitely writing somewhat comedically there. I could be wrong. But I can't help but think he might have been taking a swipe at some of his contemporaries that he knew personally. Because a lot of the sci-fi writers at the time that he interacted with, namely Arthur C. Clarke and Isaac Asimov, who were both big-time communists, also tended to like boys or other men.
Okay, then.
Asimov died of AIDS in the 80s, I believe, and it's highly, highly suspected that Clarke ran away to Sri Lanka to escape diddling little boy charges. And he wasn't. And they were just the two ones that I can think of. I mean, there was what's his name? The first black, the guy who got the first black guy to get the Hugo was also a bit of a pedo. And
I can never remember his name.
But I mean, it was kind of freaky how many, and it wasn't just sci-fi. How many writers in that era were also either flaming gay or after little boys? I mean, one thing that really disgusts me is Allen Ginsberg is held up as some sort of great figure of the 60s and to this day is spoken well of. He's one of the founding members of NAMBLA.
Yeah.
We're all bitching about Lovecraft hiding in his basement, not liking people. You know, Ginsberg was campaigning to bone boys.
Just for the sake of clarity, was he a pederast or pedophile?
I believe little boys.
Oh, God, that's gross.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Enough of that, I guess.
Ugh. Endless Nocturne. You've seen that movie Bob video about him being more sympathetic to villains?
No, I haven't. Doesn't surprise me, though, considering he's expressed a lot of genocidal feelings.
Shit.
No, he has, really.
Yeah.
Apparently YouTube's okay with it, though.
I mean, I'll admit, I tend to enjoy the villains more than I do the heroes, but that's because the villains tend to be more developed. And in a lot of modern day fiction where everybody's a cardboard cutout, that's saying a lot. So, but they tend to put more stuff into villains because villains tend to be more fun to write and more fun to develop. So I tend to enjoy the villains more because there's more meat for me to sink my teeth into. Owen, the Predators from Predator had more honor than most of the Hollywood elitists.
Oh, yeah, but...
Well, the Predators have a code, you know.
Yeah, I would say the Ferengi had more honor than Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
That's saying a lot.
Again, the Ferengi have a code. We have a copy of their book.
And the funny thing is, the Ferengis were a parody of Hollywood Jews.
Mm.
Written by a Jew, so it was okay.
Oh, it's okay.
It was Ira Burke came up with it, but they were specifically a parody of Hollywood Jews, and the Grand Nagus apparently was a parody of Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, I did remember
Think about that. I mean, I guess you can say it after the fact that he was okay saying that, but
what was it? Employees are the rungs on the ladder to success.
it was family.
No,
friends and family are the rungs of the ladder of success. Feel free to step on them.
No. That's employees. Friends and family you're supposed to exploit.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. But yeah, Ira Burr, I don't know. I just figured that might have. Why didn't that get him hung in Hollywood?
Because he hid it behind a big-eared alien.
And then after the fact, it doesn't matter now.
Yeah. Caesar, at least best Starfleet Captain William Shatner denounced the stormtrooper takedown on Twitter.
I love Shatner.
Shatner's awesome.
He was kind of a dick apparently, but he is definitely in his old age. He's lived. He has no time for bullshit.
No time for bullshit, no fucks to give, and he doesn't owe anybody anything, and it's wonderful seeing him in his old age. Eloise, have you guys heard of the Shelley Rocha? No. What is the Shelley Rocha? I am very curious.
Okay, let's see.
Or the faculty?
Okay. Oh, they Kuhn's book and movie.
Oh. I remember when the faculty came out, I never saw it. Kuhn's, okay. I know there's lots of theories behind who and what Kuhn's is. No, Kuhn's is a ghost name. There is a person named Dean Koontz, but I seriously doubt he's still writing, or if he does, he writes the books he wants to write. Otherwise, he's a franchise. He's a company. And every one of the books under that Dean Koontz name that I have attempted to read, I cannot get past the 3rd chapter. None of them have been able to grab me. I don't care how well written they are. I just can't. There's something about the method that the ghostwriters are using to write. And I've tried to read several different genres under the Dean Koontz name. I cannot get past the 3rd chapter. Anyway. Ishi, being a black man, I fear these social progressives.
I don't like to dive too deep into racial issues, but buddy, I feel for you. I mean, I'll try and play it safe so YouTube doesn't ban me, but the sheer sense of ownership that these social progressives seem to have over the black community is really disturbing. The way they speak as if Black America not only owes them something, but somehow is their property or their territory. And if any black leaves the plantation, they're a race traitor and a sellout and they need to be dealt with. Well, that is frightening shit.
That Black America also seems to have one thought, that they're not individuals with their own hopes and dreams and visions and thoughts.
Or this continual idea that every Black American needs constant handouts because they're too simple to do anything else. Yeah. You hear them talk about needing to, blacks need this, blacks need this. Like, you're talking about Black America as if they're 5-year-olds. It's weird, living in California, that notion was definitely alive and well. And now living in Arizona, where that's not the norm.
Mm-mm.
It's so different, here.
It's a different mentality. Well, also in general, or at least in the Phoenix area, I can't speak for anywhere else in the state. You're allowed to be an individual and have your own ideas and even fuck up in this town.
Yeah,
you're allowed to make mistakes. The government isn't going to hold your hand.
And one thing that really, I hate the fact that this topic is such a minefield. That in itself is ridiculous. That someone like me, since I'm not black, I can talk about the observations and what I see. And if I just happen to say something wrong or isn't acceptable, or it says, well, this is what I perceived, I'm not even allowed to ask the question. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that one time, of my dealings with Hollywood, I was out there with Jimmy. He was doing his pitches, and Jimmy was a black writer in Hollywood, and he went out to lunch with all the other people he knew, and I realized, oh, all of his friends in Hollywood were also black, and they all got together, and they sat in their circle, and I kind of sat off to the side. And what really freaked me out about their conversation, and maybe Wolf, you can enlighten me on this, is the entire conversation for the whole 2 hours we were there constantly revolved around, well, this is what we're, because we're black, and this is because of black, and because that's what it means to be black. Oh, that's how it is with the black. It's like, it seemed like, don't you guys have individual personalities and ideas? It seemed like they'd all say something is like, well, we're black and we think this, and then they'd all nod, kind of thing. Or
wow.
And it was really strange that everything seemed very contingent on them all being in the black club. And maybe I've probably just said something horribly offensive at this point.
Well, you're at the very least, you're an outsider looking in, and the way that you have put this out there as you want to know.
But it was so utterly weird to me because I never got around Asians, and it was like, as Asians, we all think this, and this is how it is with us. And you get together and talk about family stuff. How hard did your mom hit you? That was a common one. But or could you imagine white people sitting around? Well, as white people,
dare I make a comment?
Yeah.
I do know of certain members of your family who kind of did that with Mexicans.
I don't want to go there. I don't want to get banned.
Okay.
I don't want to get banned from YouTube with a accidentally racist comment because of my family.
Okay.
You understand?
I do understand. That's why
my extended family said a lot of really racist shit. Okay? Ridiculously racist shit. And either it was thoroughly blatant on one side, or on the other side, they were good and progressive and didn't realize how racist they were sounding. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I'm fighting the urge to.
I don't want this to.
No. So Owen asks which version of Body Snatchers you recommend.
Well, for context, I would say watch the original one. I think it was the late 50s or early 60s when it came out. And like I said, it stars Kevin McCarthy. And it's shot a bit more like a noir film in the way that it's lots of stark black and white color. It's all about tension building and fear. I mean, it's still a horror film at its heart, but it has more of a noir vibe to it in that there's a genre of noir that a lot of people don't realize, that PI, pulp PI noir stories are not the vast majority. That is just one aspect of the genre. A lot of them, it's, losers, con artists are both genres. But another genre that no one seems to really know, Hollywood's another one. Hollywood noir.
Very much. Hollywood noir.
But one aspect of noir that most people don't know about is domestic bliss. And that's weird because that was a huge, huge portion of those films, was that they would go into the domestic bliss of 1950s or 1940s America, where the neighborhood, where everything's right, everything's safe, everything's okay. But behind closed doors, it's bizarre sex and murders and scheming and just paranoia, tension.
God, I'm trying to remember some of
Too Late for Tears.
Too Late for Tears.
Pitfall.
That was the one I was trying to remember.
That's your favorite, right?
Actually, Too Late for Tears is my favorite. But Pitfall is my second favorite. And then there's Mildred Pierce.
Oh yeah, that one's incredible.
And the book is actually even more of a spiral down, the rabbit hole of quote suburban bliss, where things fall apart even worse than what was in the movie.
So in that regard, the original Body Snatchers has that more feel because it's small town America up in like San Jose, I think, or is it Santa Clara? It's this very idyllic town. Everyone's happy, and then suddenly something strange starts happening, and there's lots of tension and paranoia. And who can you trust? Which is very reflective of the noir domestic bliss genre. The other ones, so I would say watch that first just for perspective. The one that everyone remembers is the one with Donald Sutherland from the 70s, late 70s, that was shot in the Bay Area as well. And what's funny is that one, well, incredibly well done, very, very well done. It was that period in the 70s where every sci-fi film was just utterly depressing and bleak and pessimistic, by the way. The people making it thought it was a commentary on conservatism, but it's so funny looking back and realizing the people acting like that were the hippies. And then the one shot in the 80s seems more like a straight horror film. It takes place on a military base. The way that it's told, it's implying that it's a side story from the original, that the original story is happening somewhere else, and this is just one side community that is also experiencing it. And Jennifer Tilly's sister, who's incredibly attractive and should have gotten more work, is in it, and she's great in it. It's a small budget film, but it's worth seeing. I really liked it. All right.
There's a quiz. Who said it? Movie Bob, Hitler, or Stalin?
I need to find that quiz. That sounds great.
Actually, it's, go up a little bit. That one. Bisco says, of course villains are interesting, but that doesn't make them somebody to aspire to be, if that makes sense. No, it totally does. I mean, let's face it. Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty is a fucking badass. There's a reason why she's a fan favorite. Until Disney made that stupid movie.
Where she's now the hero. Now who cares?
Yeah, and not only who cares, is just, well, there's no reason to give a shit about her anymore. Now she's this weakling, honestly. I mean, it's like the book Wicked. Yes, I fucking hate Wicked. Wicked is one of the few books I have ever literally wanted to put on a bonfire. That's how much I hated that book. Why? Because not only is the Wicked Witch of the West no longer a villain, in fact, it kind of makes Dorothy out to be a villain, but she still has all of these traits that should make her a reprehensible bitch, but we're supposed to hold her up as somebody to like and possibly want to be friends with, even though she's, you know, sleeping with a man that she knows is married. And in fact, what winds up living with his widow and mooching off of her without ever telling this woman, hey, I fucked your husband. Not only that, she's a terrorist and she's blown shit up and she's hurt other people, and it's because of her own terrorism that this man is dead. Why do I give a shit about this person?
Welcome to feminism.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate feminist mindset.
I hated that book with a passion. The only reason why I finished it was because I felt obligated to. So you are absolutely right. Villains should be interesting and engaging, but that doesn't make them somebody that you should to aspire to be or want to be pals with. Again, I love Scorpius. I love the character of Scorpius. I love how they developed him. I love how they made him engaging. Let's face it, everybody, Scorpius is the closest we are ever going to see of Thrawn, but it was satisfying to see him taken down, and you needed to have that.
Well, the thing about villains is you don't want to be them, but it's always fun to watch. It's like, what's their fucking damage?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck's wrong with this person?
And when you did see Scorpius's damage, it's like, I understand.
You're still an asshole.
You're still an asshole.
Here's one for you.
Okay. Have you ever read the original War of the Worlds, and what are your thoughts on it and its adaptations? War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells. Sadly, that was the one of his, I've read all of H.G. Wells's classics, and that was the one I had the hardest time getting through, and it was the one I liked the least. I loved the ideas. I loved the concept. I can totally see how H.P. Lovecraft borrowed from it for, I think it's Color Out of Space. But the book itself, the storytelling, the way it's told, fucking paint drying. Oh my God, it takes forever for anything to happen. Not only that, okay, I am very familiar with the style of writing for that time period. I have read many different books from the 1800s, even from the 1700s. I can get through most books that like college students would throw out the window because they understand that it's English, but they don't understand the language it's written in, and I can actually read those things. I'm very familiar with how to do that. What got me about War of the Worlds is the fact that it's one person telling you about him walking through this blighted countryside, which is fine, but then he meets other people who then tell him about their exploits and things that they have been told by other people. So you're getting third and fourth hand knowledge. Why not just have our main character, experience this weirdness? Or when they come across people and they're told this shit, it's that person's experiences, so that shit actually happens, so that there's some semblance of action instead of being told. And it really is, well, somebody told me that building fell down. Well, why did it fall down? Well, they told me that the alien knocked it over. Why not actually describe the alien knocking it over? That's way more entertaining. That was a slog. So I like the ideas of War of the Worlds. The book itself is boring as fuck.
I tried reading that so many times as a teenager and just couldn't get through it.
Again, it's another one of those things where I only finished it because I felt I needed to, in my ongoing pursuit, to read for myself the classics. But The Invisible Man is probably one of my favorites, my absolute favorite books. You're going to end up on so many government lists for staying up this late to watch a UFO podcast.
Oh, well, as for myself, anyone who's a writer, after a while, your Google search history is just going to land you on every fucking government list.
Who was it that said they occasionally will type in, I'm
Me?
a writer? That was you? Okay.
Yeah, occasionally I'll do that for the hell of it into a search engine. It's tactical nuke, biowarfare, child smuggling, yes,
chemical agent, chemtrails.
Colombian cartels.
Oh yeah.
How to hide? Was it how to hide a murder scene?
Mexican drug mule.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. After a while,
Aged boomer. I had a big crush on Meg Tilly growing up. She starred in Carmilla in a Showtime special.
I think I'll have to look that up. Yeah, Meg Tilly is, I always thought Jennifer Tilly was kind of cute, but Meg Tilly is really attractive.
Meg Tilly's nice.
You've seen?
Yes.
I believe she's half Vietnamese and half
I think so
French.
Too. Yeah. But yeah, very nice.
All right, let's see.
Owen, the concept of Invasion of the Body Snatchers sounds like it can be made on low budget or higher budget, depending on the director.
Yeah, it can actually be done effectively with no budget if you've got a good cast and a decent location.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of is a complete side topic, but I long for the days of when every film didn't have to be a blockbuster, because there are so many good sci-fi stories that don't need to have every planets exploding and Thanos shitting on the universe and just CGI and stunts. And there are plenty of stories that can be told on such a small scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I miss that. I really do. I really hope more indie. I mean, there's been a few good indie films. I thought, even though you didn't care for it as much, I thought Infinity Chamber was kind of good.
Mm-hmm.
We saw The Fair. There was another one we saw that we thought was pretty good that was low budget or no budget sci-fi.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I mean, I would like to see more. I mean, horror has done a decent job of it. Maybe. I don't know. Let's
Would
see.
you count Rover? I mean,
Oh, well, yeah, that's a low budget film.
Mhm.
I mean, they did a lot with that film. That's one I want to review. Definitely. Let's see.
Do we have a copy of Rover?
Yeah, I bought it.
Okay, I couldn't remember if we had it or not. Caesar, best or worst alien races in fiction? Best and worst, sorry.
Best and worst. Well, let's
Okay, well, let's
narrow down the variables. So let's remove things like the Thing and the Xenomorph. Let's go for ones that are absolutely okay. The Thing was self-aware, but
well, also, do we want to limit it to movie versus books, or do you mean fiction in general?
I don't know.
Because he says fiction.
Let's go for fiction then, I guess.
Okay.
So
fiction in general, books and movies together.
Sure, why the hell not?
Okay, best and worst.
Best and worst. I really like the Lectroids from Buckaroo Banzai.
Hey, they're cool.
It's fucking hilarious.
The black or the red Lectroids?
Oh, the red Lectroids, man. They're crazy.
Yeah.
I thought that the Martians from the War of the Worlds TV series were quite enjoyable.
Yeah, they were pretty cool.
I don't know if they were the best, but I thought that was a very interesting take on things.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the Founders were kind of interesting in DS9.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think. Let me think about worst. You say.
Oh, my favorite? Oh, geez.
Again, this is more your territory than mine.
Yeah, my brain's mush, so I'm having a hard time.
Both of our brains are mushing. And, it's only 10 o'clock for us. Most of these people, it's probably 2 in the morning or something.
Oh, that's true.
So we have no excuse.
Okay, alien races that I really liked. It shouldn't be this hard.
Because you've read a lot of those books. The stuff I tend to read is, usually on Earth, and it's just, sci-fi people, cyberpunk.
I liked Garrus in the first Mass Effect only. I don't count the other two. I do not acknowledge that they exist purely because the second one bleeds into the third. But I loved Garrus's design and I liked the character. I did wish they had developed him a little bit more for that game, but oh well. Let's see. What other alien races were pretty awesome? I did like the concept for the Trill in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea that you actually the whole concept of
the symbiote.
Well, what is intelligence? If you saw an intelligent life form, would you recognize it for what it was?
Oh, I brought that up earlier.
Oh, you did? Okay. So, you have these, for lack of better terms, slugs. Would you have known that they were long-lived, hyper-intelligent creatures if you had just seen them? But the fact that they had actually developed this symbiotic relationship with these humanoids, I find that fascinating. That's a great evolution there. So that's why I like them.
Okay, worst aliens ever. And I'm sure there are plenty of B movies that we could throw in there, a lot of Roger Corman. But see, that's easy. We should really, I'm going to throw something in there that's high budget, that has no excuse to be so fucking lame, because it has lots of talent behind it, wonderful CGI, all that stuff, and it still was moronic. And that is blue space Indian cats from Avatar who have sex with their hair. Retarded.
Yeah. No, it's not just that they had sex with their hair. It's the fact that it is implied to the point of blatantly stating that when they're riding their mounts, they are riding their mounts.
I mean, I suppose I would say best and worst. The best are the grays, but you said fiction, so
Yeah.
I exist.
Yeah, you're right here.
And I would say worst.
And he's nude.
I would say worst, but again, we're talking fiction. If we were talking real, those fucking reptoids.
Careful, you might be considered racist.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to be flagged for being racist.
Space Satanist lizards.
Space Satanist lizards.
All
there
right.
you go. I know that this might be low-hanging fruit, but was it the Alien Invader? It's that really bad B movie. I'm trying to remember the name of the director, but the alien comes to Earth and it has this little like magic egg, and it's constantly losing the egg to these rednecks.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Galaxy Invader, space, all those. Yeah, that's easy though. I mean, that was made by some redneck with a video camera and some rubber costumes.
Well, that's again one of those instances of your character or your villain or your whatever is only as good as what you throw up against it. So if they're really hard to fight or really hard to kill, like say the xenomorph or the predator, that win is earned, and it's much more satisfying. With a Galaxy Invader, he's a fucking klutz and a doof, and it's like, dude, were you kicked off your planet for being an idiot and that's why you're here? The fact that he keeps getting his ass kicked by rednecks is hysterical.
Well, we know the real reason is the guy in the costume couldn't see out of the mask.
No, but
so he kept falling over.
Yeah, but then the aliens.
Do you want to explain to the audience what the hell you're talking about?
I did. It's okay. Galaxy Invader. He's an alien who comes to Earth, and he has this magic egg thing, which rednecks keep taking from him.
Was it Brandon Tenold reviews it?
Oh, Brandon reviews it. Red Letter Media reviews it. And anybody who's familiar with Mystery Science Theater, if you saw Pod People, it's the film that's playing during the opening credits of Pod People. So it gives you an idea. Oh, and I liked the Universal Invisible Man movie because how darkly comedic it was, and I just loved the character.
You're getting into her territory. She loves the Universal classics.
Well, the original, yes. The original classic Invisible Man I absolutely love, and it is the only Invisible Man movie that I will recognize as having been created. Every other film, the two Invisible Man films that have come out, especially the one recently, if the Invisible Man is a fucking rapist, it's not the Invisible Man. It's just somebody's rape fantasy. And fuck that shit. He's not a rapist. He actually has no interest in love or sex or in the book, even in women, really. He's entirely driven on his work and how to unfuck himself because he screwed up with his experiment, and that's how he became invisible. So this whole bit that Alan Moore basically created of him being a rapist, it's like, fuck that shit.
I think that says a lot about Alan Moore.
Endless Nocturne. I have too much faith in human ingenuity to have any positive feelings towards Thanos.
I agree. Anyone who relates to Thanos, that's a litmus test for someone you should probably stay away from.
And the funny thing is that I do applaud them for... See, Thanos had the great beginnings of one of those villains who is a villain, but once you find out his damage, he's still a fucking villain, at least in the movies, which is that he was so scarred by the fact that was it his mother died, that he decided to take it to the absolute extremes so that like nobody can ever go through what he did ever again by wiping out half of everything. That's some serious damage there, but
That's some serious Bill Gates logic.
That is, but you shouldn't relate to him or feel sympathy for him. It's like, okay, I understand your damage now. You're still fucked. Really, I liked his original damage, which was I'm trying to impress this girl I have a crush on.
Well, yeah, the movie version of Thanos is essentially a more mild version of Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
I only want to kill half the universe.
Elias, silly question here. Have you the Iron Giant? If you have, what are your thoughts on the film, concept, and moral of the story?
Very sorry, have not seen it yet.
Sadly, I haven't either. I know, it's a crime. It's a terrible crime. Has anybody...
It does. I mean, I want to see it.
Yeah, same here. And it was one of those films that I was cursed to, like, every time we were going to be watching it in movie nights with our old hangout group, in high school with my my D&D group. Every time we were going to sit down and watch the Iron Giant, something would happen and we weren't able to. I'm cursed. I don't think I'll ever be able to see it. And I say that because that's happened 5 times. Where, somebody's DVD was scratched to fucking hell, or the guy was on call with the military and he got called into work, or
Dave.
Yeah. Or somebody forgot to bring the film and then it never was brought ever again. So I'm cursed. Has anybody here watched the TV show The Trippids? I have no idea if it holds up, but the imagery got stuck in my brain since I watched it as a 7 or 8-year-old.
That's one of those classics from the UK that I just never got to see.
The Trippids?
Yeah, which is a... Oh, wait, the Trippids, not the tripods. The Trippids. Oh, yeah. You know what? If you're talking about the one about the plants from space, it was such a great start. And then it started to really, really drag.
Didn't we turn it off?
No, we watched the whole thing.
Did we?
Now, I don't know if you're talking about the black and white movie, which we watched. I think it was black and white. And they end with them on a ship.
Yeah.
Or if you mean the mini series from UK, where it was considerably better, but it just dragged. But yeah, the imagery of the Tripid was definitely disturbing.
Real quick, somebody brought up Time Lords.
Yeah.
So, if we're going to go through Doctor Who, we'd have to... I think Doctor Who in itself could be a breakdown of what's your favorite and least favorite alien races, seriously, because there's just a wealth there.
Joe Briggs Jr., that avatar is inspired. I don't know what to say other than it's just really, really inspired. Okay.
While I enjoyed Thanos from the movies, I do like the more Greek mythology style Thanos from the Infinity Gauntlet storyline when he tries to win Death's love. Like I said, I prefer that.
Well, he's a Titan.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Well,
it's more, there's a drive, there's a goal, there's something to strive for. This bit of, I'm going to kill half of everything and then sit on a rock. What the fuck is that shit? Like, yes, I've done a good job today. Like, you're not a farmer who's just finished plowing his field. Shit. Memoirs of the Invisible Man. Fuck yeah! I love that film.
Underrated.
Very much so underrated. And I went for years not knowing that was a John Carpenter film.
A work for hire, but still very fun.
Well, that's the thing, is showing that Carpenter, even when he's a work for hire, can turn out top-notch, work.
Well,
You know, that he's always a professional.
We have gotten through our questions. We're going on 2 hours, so I guess that kind of makes up for no shows for the last few days. You got to hear me rant about aliens and saucers, and then you came on and cheered everyone up.
Oh, were people about to slit their wrists?
No, I was
you know how horrible life is on a saucer derelict ship.
No, you're funnier than me. I'm very serious. You're far more lighthearted than me.
Now, what type of alien grog do they pass out to the sailors on an alien ship?
It's not that kind of sailor.
No,
not that kind of alien ship.
Is it the kind of sailors that have a disco ball?
I hate to tell you this, but the
in the Navy,
the Greys, the mouth actually has devolved. It's no longer. It's just a remnant from the past. All food is now consumed through intravenous injection. It's mostly coffee.
Is that why you never eat in front of me?
Yeah.
So, what orifice do you do that through?
Well, it's been great having you join us for this evening. We will talk again soon. Tomorrow we're going to be back with the writer's room.
Yes, we are, and we will hopefully have the Lord of Buddy and William joining us. And
as always, we please continue to send us your fake romance novel.
Yes, please
ideas.
Do.
And the thing is, we had so much fun reading all those really bad sci-fi, fantasy, and horror romance novels, or I guess would be paranormal. We really want you guys to submit ideas where it's a title and then a book description, like what you'd see on the back of the book, and make it as outlandish as possible. Because when we get enough of them, we're going to read them all on air. We've already got 2.
Yes, you can submit them to submissions@glitchwork.com. Again, that's submissions@glitchwerk.com.
And in the meantime, if you want to support us, you can either buy one of my books from Amazon.com, link in the description, or buy one of those lovely T-shirts of the Night Editor.
Yeah, well, of the
Judge
Night
Cat.
Editor, there is also a human, alien in a human suit shirt that is available as well. All of the shirts are on TeePublic. And please visit nighteditor.com for all of the links, including the links to all of our shows, and support us on Subscribestar. Thank you all very much for joining us this evening, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. I will try and keep doing this every Wednesday.
Good night, everyone.